Hey guys, it's chessdoctrine.com. My name is Anthony and today we are going to explore solid and classical d4 opening, the Nimzo-Indian Defense. The Nimzo-Indian Defense is characterized by the moves d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4, so black prevents an e4 advancement, as the pawn will be captured by the knight. From here, white may play 4 different variations that will be considered in this video. Queen c2, a3, e3, and bishop g5. So keep watching it and you'll learn all of the lines. Let's explore the Rubinstein variation first. e3. Here, white probably gives up the idea of e4 promotion and plays as solid as possible. After this move, black castles, bishop d3, d5, knight f3, c5, kingside castling, d takes c4, bishop takes c4, knight bd7, queen e2, b6, rook d1, c takes d4, e takes d4, bishop b7, and d5. White pushed the pawn to blow up the center. There is actually another line where we take the pawn on d5 as the 6th move. Then e takes d5, knight e2, rook e8, kingside castling, b6, queen c2, bishop b7, a3, bishop takes on c3, knight takes on c3, knight bd7, b3, c5, bishop b2. Both sides developed their pieces and prepared for the positional play in the middle game. But what if we decide to place our bishop to g5 square, to pin black's knight? Then black pushes their h-pawn to h6, threatening to take this annoying g5 bishop, after which the line continues. Bishop h4, c5, d5, bishop takes c3 check, b takes c3, d6, e3, queen e7, knight f3, knight bd7, bishop d3, e5, knight d2, preventing e4. Then black plays g5. We put our bishop on g3. And if black castles here, we go for h4, launching the kingside attack. If g4 is played, we put our bishop on f5. After that, black offers the exchange by the knight b6. We exchange the bishops and play h5, blocking the weakness on h6. This position is much more favorable to be played by white, of course. So instead of castling, black should maneuver their king to c7, as this is the safest place for it. White could also place their queen on c2, insisting on e4 advancement, as our pawn would be protected by the queen now. Black castles, then a3, b takes c3, queen takes c3, b6, bishop g5, bishop b7, e3, d6, f3 to play e4, h6, bishop h4, knight bd7, bishop d3, c5, knight e2, rook c8, kingside castling. This is an equal position, but I would personally prefer white, as there are lots of initiatives in the center. Okay, we've explored those not sharp and unaggressive lines, but what about the one that will make your game much more interesting? I'm talking about a3 as the 4th move by white. It's called Samish variation. 97% of players take this knight on c3, so we'll explore the lines after this move. Alright, b takes c3, and black has 2 moves, kingside castling and c5. Let's go for the kingside castling first. Then f3. If black goes d5, we exchange the pawns and go for e3, rook e8, bishop d3, c5, knight e2, knight c6, and kingside castling. If black plays bishop e5, which is a mistake, we go for knight e2, rook e8, g4, bishop g6, h4, h6, knight f4, knight c6, knight takes on g6, f takes g6, and bishop d3. It is a much better for white. If black puts their c-pawn to c6, the line continues by bishop d3, knight bd7, knight e2, rook e8, and kingside castling. The other line that black may go for is rook e8, then bishop d3, c5, knight e2, b6, kingside castling, bishop a6, knight g3, bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, knight c6, and bishop b2. If black goes knight a5 in response to bishop b2, it doesn't make sense since we can simply place our rook to e1, then knight c4 and bishop c1 with dangerous kingside attack opportunities for white. But if black gets active and plays h5, then rook a to e1, h4, knight a5, h3, e4, each takes g2, and creative rook f2 to take on g2, and scoping for the black king on g file. If c5 is played as the 8th move by black, then bishop d3, rook e8, and knight e2. What if, instead of d5, black attempts to create some counterplay on kingside and plays knight h5? Then we respond with knight h3, queen h4, and knight f2. If black develops their knight to c6 here, then we push our e-pawn to e4. After that, there are two lines, and one of them is d6. Then bishop d3, b6, knight a2, bishop a6, bishop g5, knight a5, and f4, with the idea of e5 to win the f6 knight. The second line is where black goes e5, then knight e2, d6, knight g3, b6, bishop g5, h6, and bishop e3. As I said earlier, there is also c5 as the 5th move by black instead of castling short. Then we play f3. If black plays solid d6, we push our e-pawn to e4, then knight c6, knight e2, and black may play here e5. We develop our dark squared bishop to e3, b6, and knight g3. If knight a5 is played here, then bishop d3, bishop a6, knight f5, g6, queen a4 check, king f8, bishop h6 check, king g8, kingside castling, g takes e5, e takes e5, and white maneuvers their queen to g3 with checkmate ideas. If kingside castling is played by black, then d5, knight a5, bishop d3, bishop a6, queen e2, queen d7, and a4. There is no play for black on the queen side now. Black may also play d5 after the f3. Then the line continues with c takes d5, knight takes d5, and d takes c5. Surprisingly, this isn't a blunder, but a book move. So, after knight takes c3, then queen takes d8, check, king takes d8, bishop b2, knight a4, bishop takes g7, and white is up a pawn. There is also scary queen a5 move, but after e4, knight takes c3, queen d2, knight c6, bishop b2, knight a4, queen takes a5, knight takes a5, bishop takes g7, rook g8, bishop f6, knight takes c5, rook c1, b6, and king f2. White has a bishop pair in the semi-open position, which gives them an advantage here. If after d takes c5, black plays castling, then e4, knight takes c3, queen b3, queen d4, bishop b2, queen e3 check, bishop e2, and it turns out that there is nothing that may stop white from taking this knight on c3. So, after e4, it is recommended for black to put their knight on e7. Then white exchanges the queens and places their bishop on e3. Alright guys, it's been a comprehensive video on Nimzo-Indian Defense. I hope now you've learned this opening and are ready to play it in your next chess games. To support our content, please press the like button, subscribe to our channel, and check out articles on other chess openings on chessdoctrine.com. Bye!